Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Rae Pardini Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced. You may have heard his voice if you're a Fresno State athletics fan. But beyond the press box, Paul Loeffler is a storyteller, broadcaster, and driving force behind Central Valley Honor Flight, an organization dedicated to honoring our nation's veterans with an unforgettable journey to Washington, D.C. On this episode of Coffee Monday, Paul joins me to share how Honor Flight took off here in the Central Valley, what it means to the veterans who experience it, and how the community continues to rally behind his powerful mission. From the emotional first flight to the upcoming trip, end of April, just right around the corner, Paul reflects on the impact of preserving stories, honoring service, and bringing generations together. So grab your coffee and settle in. This conversation is a tribute to heroes past and present, and a reminder of the difference that one voice and one community can make. Well, Paul, thank you for being here. This is very conversational. We're just going to kind of dive into it if you're cool with that.
You go. You're the boss.
Yeah. Well, you're the pro.
We'll see.
So tell us about your life outside of these four walls. How do you spend your days?
Wow.
I know.
Well, I love to play basketball. Some days better than others. We've got so many awesome people in this community. I think that's, I say this all the time, and not just to remind myself, but I think that our community needs to hear it. But we live in a special place filled with special people. So a lot of my time is just connecting with some of those people.
I love it.
Workout groups, Bible studies, veteran stuff. Plenty of time with the Bulldogs, but
I love that.
Special place.
I agree with you. That's partially why I started this podcast.
Good job.
To be able to shine a light on those special people doing big things here. So that's great. And you have a podcast of your own.
Yeah, I'm so old and old-fashioned that it's kind of more of a radio show still than a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me dive into the podcast world and get in touch with my kids' generation.
I know.
But yeah, I've been interviewing World War II guys for about 20 years.
That's amazing.
They're amazing.
I know, they are. They really are. And is that sort of, tell me about the inception of the Central Valley Honor Flight and how that kind of came about.
Well, how long's your podcast? Do you have a time limit?
I know. We got all the time.
The short version is what I just said. We live in a special place filled with special people. That God's plans are always better than our plans, and that when we find a cause that we can all agree on, there's no limit to what we can do. So the special place, special people thing, I think, is key, because a lot of people don't know this. The Valley has a higher concentration of veterans than anywhere else in the country.
Wow.
So, yeah, and if the whole story, I mean, we're going back to a lot of years, and it involves a credit union, a quarterback, a couple little old ladies who kept calling me, and just a growing collection of volunteers that make it happen, because it's an all-volunteer organization.
Amazing.
But if you want to really trace it back to the beginning, didn't start with me. There was an idea with one guy in Ohio, this guy named Earl Morse.
Okay.
I interviewed him on my show years ago when he first did this. So the World War II Memorial, have you ever been there in Washington, D.C.?
And we're having this conversation, and I'm hearing the stories about some of your trips, and I'm like, this makes me want to go. I have not been.
I think you should go and tell some stories for your audience. I think it'd be great. Or take your kids.
Yeah. No, they would love it.
So, for many years, you've got the Vietnam Memorial there with all the names on it. Even in the 90s, they built the Korean War. But here we're 60 years after World War II, and there's no memorial to a war that cost over 400,000 American lives.
Yeah, wow.
And so World War II veterans across the country, my grandfather included, donated to build that memorial. It wasn't government money. It was the World War II veterans themselves donating to build this memorial. 2004, it finally gets built. And this one physician's assistant at a VA hospital in Ohio named Earl Morris, he's talking to one of his patients who's a World War II vet. He says, hey, are you going to go see that new memorial they just built? The guy's like, oh, I'm too old. It's too hard to travel. He says, well, I'm a pilot. What if I fly you in my plane? The guy says, can we leave tomorrow? Right? I mean, that's all of a sudden, that was a game changer.
Amazing.
So one man flew one veteran. Other people found out about it. The next time he's taken 3 or 4 vets. His buddy in North Carolina says, what if I take a whole flight? So this idea starts spreading around. I heard about it. I told a few people in town, hey, we've got a lot of vets here. Why don't you guys start an honor flight here? Fly them from here. Because no one else around here was doing it. Nothing happened. 2008, Fresno State wins the College World Series. I'm there in Omaha for 2 weeks. I'm interviewing some veterans there for my radio show. And they had just gone on an honor flight. So I come back again. I mention it to a few people.
What are the odds of that, though?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stories like this. Like if I go back to
that is like so divine. Wow.
Really for me, and that's the other question I get asked, well, why do you care, right? Why are you part of it? And I care for the same reason all our other amazing volunteers care. They have a connection. If we think about it, we're all connected.
Oh, totally.
So my grandfather was one of my heroes. He was a small town doctor in the center of the universe, Los Banos, California. And one time, when I was a kid, I see his medals in the closet. Then I find this frame in his closet. It's turned to face the wall, and it says in giant red letters, Chicagoan saves 26. That's my grandpa pulling 26 guys out of burning tanks and getting the Silver Star, one of the highest medals you can get. I'd never heard that story. So that's what made me really want to start interviewing veterans way back when. I want to get his story. And if he's got a story that he hasn't talked about, how many others? So since then, I've had the privilege of interviewing over 1,000 World War II vets.
That's amazing.
You hear their stories, and the crazy thing is, they've never done something like this. That's what hooked me. I would sit there for an hour, and the wife says, I've never heard that before. What? For 60 years you kept this from your wife, from your family?
Right.
So when it becomes okay, all of a sudden it's a game changer. And Honor Flight, more than anything I've been around, has the ability to open those veterans up. But what I'm getting at, Rae, sorry for the circuitous route here.
This is good. I'm good.
When I interviewed my grandpa, I asked him about that. I said, all these shells are coming in, tanks are blowing up, and you and your Jeep driver kept going back in. What were you thinking?
Yeah.
He says, what was I thinking? I thought I was going to get killed. And I had kind of the same reaction you just did, right? I said, well, I'm glad you didn't. He says, yeah, you wouldn't be around. Now sit and think about that.
I know,
and think about your own family.
My grandpa, same thing.
Right?
Yeah, he served in World War II and he was a medic.
So, and that's what my grandfather was.
Yeah, and he was an internist here. They probably knew each other.
How about that?
Honestly.
See, I said we're all connected, and now we're even more connected than we knew.
Yeah.
But that thought of not only would we not have the communities we have, we might not even exist.
It's so true.
So
Chills.
it personalizes it. And so with the Honor Flight thing, I had told a lot of people I thought we needed it here. But what happened? And I don't know if you've ever had something like this happen. When you're not getting the picture, God uses other people to bring it into focus for you.
100%. Yep.
So all of a sudden, I start getting these phone calls. And I just spoke to this woman today. She just had a birthday. I won't say how many, but it's a big number. And she looks better than the number.
Amazing.
Her name's Nancy Walker. So she calls me on a Sunday. She said, hey, I love your show with the veterans, but when are you going to start Honor Flight in Fresno? I said, you know what? You're right. We need it here. We have all these veterans. She said, well, when we were up in Northern California, my husband went with a group from Eureka. If they can do it, why can't Fresno? I said, you're right. I'll tell everybody else.
Yeah.
The next week, another woman, Diane, calls. The same thing. Hey, I know about Honor Flight from Chicago. Why don't we have it in Fresno? It's like, oh, I agree. The next week, Nancy calls again. Then Diane calls again. And they don't know each other.
They don't know each other.
Same message. And basically, it came down to them saying, when are you going to do something about it?
Yeah.
But
wow.
I know this is a really long story, but I hope
it's good.
What it shows is what makes our community special and what it's really taken to produce this, because it's so not about me. It's about so many other people and how God works us all together. So I got some people together and we talked about it. We all agreed, yeah, our community needs this. They've got one in San Diego, way in Northern California, but nothing for this area where there's more veterans than anywhere.
Which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, it
I
says
did
something.
not know that. Yeah, it does.
And a lot of, when you think about it demographically, overlooked groups of veterans too. And veterans, some of my favorite stories that I've heard over the years are from veterans. I mean, if you would have had this podcast 10 years ago and you interviewed my friend Dr. Fitzalbert Marius, you would have had a 10-hour episode because his story was so unbelievable. He did the first heart surgery in Fresno. He's an African-American doctor that when he first started practicing here, wasn't even allowed to see patients on this side of the 99.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm getting off target here.
No. That's good.
So I got some people together.
Yeah.
We all agreed this needs to happen, but it's going to take some money. And somebody's going to need to spend probably 50 or 60 hours a week to get this going, to be a leader.
Yeah.
And I talked to my wife, and she made it very clear, and she was 100% right. You don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Right? Our kids are little. I'm busy doing my job.
Right.
So it was one of those things. And everyone sees the world a little differently, right? But for me, it was, I've got to pray about this. I remember taking a walk and praying and just saying, God, I know our community needs this, but I know I can't make it happen by myself. I want to. I really wanted to just say, let's do it.
Right.
But I had to let it go and lay it on the proverbial altar and say, God, if you want this to happen in our community, do it in your way and your timing. And sometimes we want that answer to come the next day.
Right.
It didn't, but it was about a year later.
Saddle up for a night to remember. Mom's Time Out is back. Leave the daily grind in the dust and join us on Wednesday, May 7th at Evanel Vineyards for an unforgettable evening of food, fun, and fabulous company. Whether you're riding solo or rolling in with your crew, you're guaranteed to have a good time. Enjoy an open bar, delicious comfort food, dancing and exciting activities and photo-worthy moments. And in attending, you have the opportunity to support the Marjorie Mason Center, a local nonprofit serving local victims affected by domestic violence. The star of the evening, Jesse James Decker, will be here in California. The singer-songwriter, New York Times bestselling author, and founder of Kittenish and Just Feed Me will be joining us for a VIP meet and greet and to share her unfiltered mom truths on stage, complete with a live Q&A with our guests. Want the VIP experience? Sponsors get exclusive access to the Squeezed Juice VIP Lounge, where you'll meet Jessie up close and personal, take photos with her, and enjoy some premium VIP perks. To top it all off, line dancing and music will keep the party going. So grab your boots, round up your besties, and get ready for one wild ride. Tickets start at $2.99, which are all inclusive of all of the fun activities we just shared: open bar, yummy comfort food, fun activities and photo-worthy moments, and tons of surprises. And sponsorships are available now as well at mumsymedia.com or at mumsymedia on Instagram. Feel free to DM us or email us with questions. We'll see you there. Spring is in full swing, and Dutch Bros is serving up a spring fever dream, a lineup of epic drinks you don't want to miss. Craving something sweet? The birthday cake iced breve, also available as a freeze or shake, is a full-on celebration with cupcake flavors, a soft top, and birthday sprinks. Need an energy boost? The Poppin' Boba Hyper Chrome packs a punch, available as an energy drink or lemonade with bursting boba. And for the chocolate lovers out there, the Brownie Batter Iced Mocha, a freeze or a shake, is rich with dark chocolate goodness in that soft top and brownie pieces on top. These seasonal sips won't be here forever, so don't wait. For all the latest Dutch Bros drinks, follow at Dutch Bros Fresno on Instagram. Coffee cheers to spring vibes. Spring is in full bloom, and so are the San Joaquin Flower Collective's beloved flower pop-ups. Fresh, local blooms straight from our valley's flower farmers, ready to brighten your home, your day, your week. But here's the catch. These pop-ups are seasonal, and so are their blooms. You may have noticed the beautiful florals on some of our podcast episodes if you're watching on YouTube. Those florals are beautifully arranged by local floral designer Darcy Hovsepian of DH Floral, with blooms sourced from the collective. To find out when and where to snag your bouquet, whether you're a florist or just a flower lover, follow at SJ Flower Collective on Instagram for all the latest updates. Because nothing quite says spring like an armful of fresh flowers. I'll see you at the next pop-up.
And I had kind of stopped thinking about, it was always there. And I really, sometimes I'd wish, boy, I should have just pushed through and tried to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I didn't, because I'm convinced if I had been stubborn and tried to do it my way, I don't know if we ever would have gotten a flight off the ground, and we might have ruined it for the future. But what happened, and thanks for being patient and listening, because
this is so interesting.
it wouldn't have happened without those two women, Nancy and Diane, calling me. And it wouldn't have happened without a call out of the blue from EECU, the credit union. They say, hey, we know you do a lot of work with veterans, and we want to do a campaign to support a veterans charity. Do you know of any? So I said, yeah, there's this and that. And we talked about starting this one. They said, oh, can we learn more about that? So all of a sudden we have a meeting, and there's another ad agency there, some great people there, and we talk about it. And you're like, yeah, I think we can do this. But we still need someone who can devote 50 or 60 hours and know what they're doing and kind of organize everything.
Yeah.
And that still wasn't me. Funny thing happened. So we had a fundraiser in town where Tim Tebow, the quarterback, came to speak.
Oh, amazing.
Tremendous speaker,
Yeah.
right? It was raising money for Fresno Christian, where our daughters went, and Break the Barriers, which
Amazing.
is a Fresno treasure and a global treasure. I love Break the Barriers. So I got to MC that event. And I get a call the next day, and this gentleman says, Paul, I just wanted to tell you that was a great event, and blah, blah, blah. I said, wait a second. I know who you are. Didn't you just retire? He says, yeah. So this gentleman, Al Perry, had run our VA hospital in Fresno for 13 years, took it from one of the worst in the country to the top of the list. He had just retired. All of a sudden, he's got some free time. He's got a heart for veterans. He's like a six-figure CEO who's going to volunteer and work for free. So we had our guy for Honor Flight. And I could give you 20 other examples.
Wow.
And now there's all these amazing couples like Bill and Janet Goodrow, or Joe and Gina Fry, or Ed and Karen Schmalzel, Scott and Linda Phillips. I can keep giving you these names that you don't know, but our veterans know, because they're the ones who have devoted so many hours to making sure it's a first-class experience. And I can tell you more about the experience itself.
I would love to know more.
But you asked how it came about, and that's the story.
So when was that? Like what year? Timestamp it.
Yep. So it feels like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So 2013, October of 2013.
Okay, so October of 2013.
Is when we finally had that first flight. And even in that, we didn't know what we were doing yet.
But it was years in the making, right? From the original idea to sort of being patient to finding the right people and the funding and all of it. Wow.
And the funding has been a real, leap of faith for many of those flights, because it's all volunteers.
Yeah.
It's all donations. But that's why I say we live in a special place filled with special people. So since that first flight in 2013, and I know we're getting in the weeds. I can give you a few little other wrinkles of what we thought we were going to do and when it would stop and where we are.
Yeah.
But going back to 2013, 30 flights, over 2,000 veterans have had this experience for free, because the people of this area, we cover from Porterville in the south to Stockton in the north, they've donated over $6 million now to create this experience for veterans. But the value to our community goes way beyond those dollars.
It really does. 2,000?
And when we started, we thought, oh, we'll just take the World War II vets. That's the urgent need. They're dying. This memorial just got built. We've got to get them there.
Yes.
And we did. And some World War II vets would say, I don't want to leave my wife for 3 days. Somebody else deserves it more. Some of those guys are still coming out now saying, hey, I'm ready to go.
I bet.
But over time, the Korean War veterans say, we haven't seen our memorial. And then the Vietnam veterans. And I've got to tell you, I never would have seen this to start with, right? Sometimes you have to take a few steps before you see what's to the left or the right. Now that we're taking mostly Vietnam veterans, we have 450 of them on the waiting list, which is why we have to keep raising money and keep going. It means more to that generation than even to the World War II guys.
Yeah, wow.
Because of how they were treated when they came home 50 or 60 years ago. Now we get to, in a way, heal that, reverse that, and as they get toward their later years, have a positive light shown on their service to our country instead of the welcome home they got way back when.
So that's what I was going to bring up. And the reality is that a lot of what they dealt with isn't so positive, and it's hard stuff, right? And I imagine a lot of the conversations that you've had with vets over the years have been very emotional, have been triggering, all of it. But this seems to be something that feels like a positive sort of tribute honor, right? I mean, I imagine these conversations would be super hard for some of these people. And to your point, when you were interviewing that guest and the wife's like, I've never heard that. Well, probably because they don't want to talk about it, right? So isn't it sometimes kind of that too? Do you find that?
Without a doubt.
I would imagine.
We can never take that lightly. Some of these things, you just can't imagine what some of these guys meant.
No.
I mean, so many prisoners of war, when you hear what they endured, like, you'll never feel sorry for yourself again. People that got shot down, right? We've had veterans that have been wounded 3-4 times.
Wow.
Guys that lost siblings over there. They lost their best friend. The Vietnam vets, they go to that wall, and they're finding the names of the guys they knew so close.
So emotional thinking about it. Wow.
But that's what the power of Honor Flight. One of the things, there's so many things it does, not just for the veterans, but for the guardians who go with them, for the families.
I bet.
But for the veterans, it is really emotional. But what it does, if there's a guy who for all these years has said, I can't talk about it because nobody else understands. If he just went to the memorial by himself, it wouldn't be the same experience. But when he goes with 70 of his fellow veterans, all of a sudden, hey, that guy was the same place I was. Oh, he was wounded too. Oh, this happened to him too. And now all of a sudden it's okay.
It's a community too.
Somebody gets it.
Yeah, wow. And I imagine there's been a lot of connection through that. Just long life, probably like lifelong friendships, and just to your point, sort of moments of bonding that they're not alone, and they didn't realize that a lot of, people are going through similar things.
Yeah, and we have veterans that, when we do our get-together before the flight, they'll see a guy's hat, they're like, oh, I was on that ship too. Oh, we were there at the same time. Or this division or that division.
Wild.
Or one of the ones that really gives me goosebumps. We had a volunteer, and this is what makes Honor Flight go. People hear my name or our fellow board members' names, or maybe they see the big billboard at Farney Automotive. If you haven't been in there at Toyota of Selma, they've got a whole wall of the pictures of all our flights, because that car dealer group, Farney Automotive Group, has paid for all 2,000 of those veterans to have a giant photo of their experience. So when I go speak at a veteran's funeral, a lot of times that's what the centerpiece is that Honor Flight photo.
I bet.
So you hear, those are some of the things that you see on the outside, but what we know is there's countless volunteers who they pour their heart and soul into it. And we had a volunteer whose father had been missing in action in Vietnam and had worn this bracelet, that during that time people would wear these bracelets. Hey, I'm remembering so-and-so who's missing. And one of our volunteers who's led a bunch of our trips, named Joe Fry, he did a little research, and he actually stumbled across a woman online who had worn this volunteer's father's bracelet 50 years ago. And he orchestrated a reunion in Washington, D.C., where that woman got to meet the son of the name on the bracelet. And it was a surprise to that young man whose father died in Vietnam.
Wow.
There's some TV stories about that were great. But that's just one little example. All of our volunteers are looking for those opportunities to make it that much richer for the veterans.
Yeah.
And we'll have veterans say, this is the first time I've spent 3 days with my son in 40 years. Or maybe it's their grandkid. Maybe it's someone they don't know. We have volunteers from the community. You know, my dad never talked about World War II. I want to go with another World War II veteran so I get to know what it's like. There's so many things. We've had some student journalists go, like high school and college kids.
Very cool.
And our veterans love that generation.
I'm sure.
Someone who actually cares, they'll pour into that young person more than talking to me. So there's just really no end to the little ripples of it. But I think the core story is what I said before. We live in a special place filled with special people, and our community gets that freedom isn't free, and that these men and women put their lives on the line for the rest of us. So when we point to that and celebrate that, it changes a lot of things.
Everything. Wow. So let's talk about the flight, the
Yeah.
whole experience of the flight. So you said, what, 450 veterans on the wait list?
Yeah, and we take about 70 per trip.
So okay, let's talk through all that.
Yeah.
So 70 per trip. You mentioned they have go through all the things.
Yeah.
Walk us through the experience.
And what a lot of communities do is they take a commercial flight.
Okay.
There are different airlines that have partnered with different communities at times and helped with that. And they might take 10, 15, 25 veterans on a flight.
Okay.
When we started, very few of these honor flight groups around the country were doing charter flights. But we talked about it, and we said, let's go for it. Let's see if people will support that. So I think it's been a real blessing to our community.
Amazing.
That we have a charter flight. Allegiant Airlines has partnered with us on all the flights. We've done 30 flights, 28 of them from Fresno. We also did 2 from the old Castle Air Force Base in Merced.
Wow.
Back when we were flying all World War II vets, and we actually had some vets who had flown on that runway in World War II and got to take off there.
Wow.
So Allegiant Airlines has been great with us and worked with us. So the whole plane belongs to Central Valley Honor Flight.
Wow.
You've got 70 veterans. Each one has a guardian.
Okay.
And the guardians help us in a big way, too. Not only, have they prevented any safety incidents, any serious safety issues over 30 flights, that's a praise God moment. But they contribute. So the veterans go for free. The guardians donate $1,200, which is tax deductible. And that offsets some of the cost for us. So that's a big help. So you've got them, then we've got a doctor, we've got nurses, we have some support staff to make sure none of the details fall through the cracks. They get up early on a Monday morning.
Okay.
We have a little procession in Fresno. We have a bugler come out and wake them up like they were in the military,
Oh, gosh. That's
Reveille.
amazing.
Dun, 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 you know how it
That's
goes.
amazing.
So, and then we give them a little talk and encourage them. We send them on their way. So they land that night in Washington. They don't have to stop anywhere else. They land in Baltimore, actually.
Okay.
So it's a nonstop flight
That's nice.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Weather could intervene.
Yeah.
And we've had some doozies, I got to tell you.
I'm sure.
I mentioned Al Perry earlier, who led our
Yeah.
first 13 flights, and we never would have gotten off the ground without him. But he started saying early on,
13. Wow.
Murphy's Law, Murphy's
Yeah.
going to show up, something's going to go wrong. Sometimes the unplanned moments are even better than what we planned.
Totally. Yeah.
But they get to D.C. They go to an American Legion post there. They have a great dinner, and they're welcomed. There are some ladies, maybe there's some ladies in your audience who want to volunteer for this,
Yeah.
who wait when the veterans land, put on extra lipstick, and make sure they leave a mark on the cheek of
stop
every
it.
veteran.
So
We do have female veterans who go too.
yeah.
And when we do have female veterans, there's a special stop I can tell about later. But so that's their first day. It's a long day.
Yeah.
We hope they get a good night's sleep. But then the next day, you can't pack more into a day in Washington, D.C. than they're going to experience. Again, the gold is not so much what they see, but who they see it with.
Totally.
But now, the last few flights, our veterans have been able to visit the Capitol.
Oh, wow.
So that was never something we did. The focus was the memorials, but some other areas had done it. Bakersfield had done it. Kevin McCarthy was Speaker of the House, and then McCarthy inherited some of our area, and he said, would you guys like to come to the Capitol? Now that's one of our veterans' favorite things,
I bet.
because they see what their sacrifice paid for, right? We risked our lives so we could have this form of government. And so they get to visit the Capitol. At times they've even been allowed on the floor of the House.
Wow.
Representatives greet them. They go to the World War II Memorial. And from the very beginning, our local representatives from both sides of the aisle, this is what I love about Honor Flight.
Yeah.
We can all agree on this. We can stop arguing about the other
It's so
stuff.
true. It's so true.
So, Jim Costa from the very beginning has been there every time. when Devin Nunes was in office, David Valadao, now Tom McClintock, Jeff Denham when he was in there. I could go down the list. Anybody that's been a congressman from our area, meeting our veterans at that memorial. There's so much to see at the World War II Memorial.
Amazing.
You've got to take your kids.
I know. Makes me, obviously I want to.
And when I say unplanned moments,
Yeah.
right? So we've got that planned. We want them to see that, you've got the Pacific Theater over here and the European Theater, and here's a panel about Pearl Harbor, and every state has a pillar. So if you're, everyone's going to see the California pillar, but a lot of our vets were born in Oklahoma or Arkansas, and they're going to go take a picture by that.
Yeah.
They're doing all that. But the centerpiece and the part that grabs me is a wall of 4,000 gold stars. Each of those gold stars represents 100 World War II veterans who died.
Wow.
So we already talked about your grandfather, my grandfather. We wouldn't be here if our grandfathers were part of one of those gold stars. And every veteran looks at that wall of gold stars and says, that could have been me.
Yeah. Wow.
And then there's the son sitting next to him, or the grandson saying, oh yeah, if that was you, then I'm not here either.
I know, right? Wow.
Right underneath it says, here we mark the price of freedom. And you feel that. So our veterans are taking that in, and well, here's some people from France or Belgium. They realize World War II veterans are here. They're going to come thank them for their freedom. And then our vets get emotional. I mentioned my buddy Dr. Marius and the trip he went on. He's such a charismatic guy. He had about 10 school kids around him, held up the bus because they didn't want him to stop telling stories.
Yeah, I bet.
So those things are going on.
Wow.
And there's other stops, right? There's the Air Force Memorial, which is a newer one. It's 3 spires going up into the heavens and the names of all the Medal of Honor winners from the Air Force. And they'll tell you, if it had been there on 9/11, the plane would have hit that instead of the Pentagon, because that's how high these spires are and the flight path that they're on. The Navy Memorial, and sometimes the Navy drill team is there. You know any Marines?
I don't, actually.
Well, you should. They're pretty good.
I know, right?
They're very fiery.
I'm sure.
So I don't know if there's any more moving spot in Washington than the Marine Corps Memorial.
Yeah.
So people just know it as Iwo Jima. It's the Marine Corps War Memorial. It's in dedication to all the Marines over all the years that have been lost in all the wars. But what it is, it's a 3D, larger-than-life rendering of the most famous war photo of all time when they're raising the flag atop Mount Suribachi. And as our veterans, whether they're in wheelchairs or walking, as they circle around that, it's an optical illusion. It actually looks like the flag is being lifted. And we've had the Marine Corps drill team there at times, which our Marines love.
Wow.
I mean, it's stop after stop. Now there's a new museum of the Army. And so our Army veterans don't feel left out because they get to take a little trip down there.
Yeah.
So all this is happening on the same day, right?
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And it can be emotionally draining.
I bet.
But they're not done yet. If we have female veterans on the flight, it changes the tone of the whole thing.
Really?
They're rock stars.
Yeah.
Gotta tell you. Maybe we can get one of them on your show. We've
Yeah,
got some talkative
amazing.
ones.
Yeah.
There's a memorial at Arlington National Cemetery that's called the Women in Military Service for America Memorial. And because, take World War II, for instance, 16 million Americans served, only 300,000 of them were women. That was a
Wow.
revolutionary thing.
Yeah, true.
And really the draw for women then was, serve your country, free a man to fight. You go do this office job so he can go risk his life, right?
Yeah.
But we had women flying airplanes across the country, and a few of them died doing that. We had nurses that were just as much as risk as anybody.
I'm sure.
My mom was an Army nurse during the Vietnam era.
Wow.
So these women go to the Women in Military Service for America Memorial. They see some representations of the different ways women have served, but then there's a big screen on the wall. And we've had some volunteers get the info about these ladies, so they've got a biography. And all of a sudden, that woman on this honor flight is in Washington, D.C., with 70 guys watching her and all the guardians, and her face and her bio is on the big screen at that memorial.
Aww.
And will always be in the registry there for anyone who
wow.
comes and visits.
Wow.
So that's a nice little wrinkle that's special when we have female veterans.
Yeah, amazing.
And if you're still with me, we've got
Oh, I'm here.
the Korean War Memorial, which is as powerful as any. If you've ever been there, it's so haunting. We've had some flights. We've had the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the Republic of South Korea there to thank our veterans.
Wow.
Giving them coins. We didn't even plan that the first time. It just happened.
I'll say, wow.
But that memorial, you see these soldiers marching through a rice paddy. It's powerful in the daytime. It's powerful at night. The stone is actually from right in our backyard in Academy, California, is where they took the rock for that memorial. So our veterans get a taste of that. And right next to the Korean War Memorial is the Vietnam Memorial. I don't know if there's anything more gut-wrenching than watching a veteran touch his hand to that wall and seeing him shake. Just seeing that the physical representation of the internal emotions that he's dealing with.
I can't imagine.
And some of those guys, it really could have been their name.
Yeah.
I mean, it's miraculous they survived, but they lost close friends, they lost brothers, they lost cousins, and to see those 58,000 names, it's something. And there's one I haven't mentioned yet, Arlington National Cemetery. Changing of the guard at Arlington. When you see, we had one flight, we had a former member of that guard detail who got to go down in the old guardhouse that he used to be stationed in and sign a special bat that they keep in there for anyone who comes back. But those guys are like robots. You've probably seen it on TV.
Yeah, I have.
Unbelievable precision.
Yeah.
Rain, shine, doesn't matter.
Right.
One time we had a wild turkey photobomb that ceremony. And our photographer, Gene Day, got the perfect shot. We've got a veteran saluting. You see the guard detail out here, and the turkey's right in here in the little triangle. I'll send you the photo.
That's great.
That's not the point. The point is, it's the tomb of the unknown soldier. And we've got 4 of our veterans get to participate in a wreath laying. And they all have some kind of connection.
Wow.
They may have lost a relative, a loved one. But that moment, you can't make that up, right? You can't buy that. And so all our veterans share that, but here's the moment. There are a few things. When I ask veterans, what was your favorite part of the audit
I was going to ask you that. Great. You beat me to it.
Well, you get a lot of different answers. You expect, it's the World War II Memorial.
I want to hear what they say. What do they say?
You would expect it's whatever memorial to their service.
Right. I would think so.
For a while, I got the same answer from every veteran. It's the police escort. When we're on the Beltway and all the traffic clears and we go through, we feel like $1 million.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's one of them. But I think the new one is this, because it's happening almost every flight now. And again, I said that for all the things we plan, and so many of our volunteers put in so much time, there's always something better that's unplanned. And what that has turned into almost every time is at Arlington, after our vets have had this emotional experience, seeing the laying of the wreath, they're heading back to the bus.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, on this walkway, there's 200 to 300 junior high kids from somewhere else in the country. They're from Ohio, they're from New York, they're from who knows where.
Right.
But they have formed a human tunnel, and they are clapping. They are looking the veterans in the eye. They're reaching out their hands. They're saying, thank you for serving our country.
Man.
And when you're a Vietnam vet who had something thrown at you 50 years ago and you got called names that you can't repeat, and now you've got a kid, the future of our country, saying, thank you for what you did.
Yeah.
So again, something we can't buy.
Wow.
But now we count on because they've got some good teachers that are telling them, hey, you should probably go thank those men and women. So I could go on for hours, Rae, and thanks for being patient with me.
No, this is so
And they haven't even gotten home yet. That's the best part.
So that's all in one day.
Well, the Arlington
or
and Korea and
2
Vietnam
days.
we do on the 3rd day.
Okay,
now.
good. Okay, so you got so they arrive, then you have the 2 full days. And then do they leave on the 3rd day or do they leave on the 4th day?
They leave on the 3rd day.
Oh, wow.
In the meantime, they've also had a real nice dinner.
I'm sure.
And where they hear more about, who each other are, and they all get recognized for their service. Again, there's lots of little unplanned moments.
I bet.
And everything's covered, right? They're well fed. They're well taken care of.
Amazing.
We tell them, don't bring any money unless you want to buy some souvenirs.
Yeah.
And some of them buy some interesting souvenirs.
I'm sure.
But then they come home, and they think, okay, it's over. Unless they've paid attention to some of our videos and they know what else is coming.
Yeah.
So we have, hopefully some of your listeners and viewers will be willing to write some letters to some of our veterans. But we tell all the veterans' families, hey, write a card, write a letter, tell your veteran how you feel. Because when they're in the service, especially the World War II guys, they were getting V-mail, a postcard this big with
Exactly.
microscopic
Tiny,
writing.
yeah.
Well, now they're flying home, and it's that long cross-country flight, and
Mm-hmm.
they're opening letters from home. It's mail call, just like it was in the military.
I love it.
So their kids, their family, and complete strangers. We have school children every flight that write these notes just to let veterans know, hey, we get it. Thank you for serving.
Wow.
So then they're really an emotional wreck,
Yes.
right? I remember seeing
So
a
they're
veteran
presented with the letters when they come back.
on the flight.
On the
In the air.
flight. Oh gosh.
So
wow.
we, like Joe Fry, who's going to be the trip leader on our next
Yeah.
flight, he'll get on the intercom and say, mail call. And then there's an
Stop.
envelope for each veteran.
Wow.
And my heart stopped one time.
I mean,
Isn't that grabbing you?
yeah.
Yeah.
And just the attention to detail every step of the way. Wow. I'm so beyond impressed.
And another little wrinkle on that. My heart stopped because I saw this veteran, and everybody had their mail, and he didn't have any.
no.
I was like, oh no, what did we do?
Yeah.
So I asked him. He said, no, I have it. I just can't read it without crying.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to cry thinking about it. Oh my God.
But then they land in Fresno. And
Wow.
I've got to tell you, you've been really patient. Let me ramble here, but this
No,
is
you're
what I
not. This
love
is so great.
This is what I love to talk about the most.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the reasons. So I've only been on one of our 30 flights. Everybody always asks me that.
Wait,
The
really?
The reason I don't go
Oh, it's for, okay.
is so I can be here for the welcome home.
Yeah.
Sometimes that plane's been delayed 3 or 4 hours, and I have to kind of try to keep the crowd engaged. But I have so much help because every flight we have the Clovis Community Band there. We have local high school cheerleaders. We have the VFW 1981 Honor Guard from Madera that has led our procession at every flight. We have the Fresno Stag and Thistle Fife and Drum, the Bagpiping Corps. We have sailors from NAS Lemoore.
Wow.
And we get to talk to them kind of as they're waiting and get a taste of how long they've been in and why they serve.
Yeah.
So what happens? If you allow me, I want to paint this picture.
I would love to, yes.
And then you got to be there April 30th.
I know.
So you can tell me how much better it was than what I said. So our trip staff is getting them off the plane, getting them lined up. The crowd is out there waiting. And the crowd, I mean, you can't find a parking spot at the airport. You know, people are inside the trunks of those sequoias peeking
so
around.
there, yeah.
The whole airport is full.
Wow.
And this is what I love. You know, before I said special place, special people, and a cause that brings people together. So if you look around the room at that moment, before the vets have come out, you're going to see age 0 to 100. No exaggeration. We have newborns every
Oh,
time.
I bet.
We've got a 100-year-old who's been on the flight and wants to cheer for his buddies.
Cute.
Every ethnicity, every religion, every political belief, every tax bracket, all this stuff. Every day we're hearing, we can't get along. None of that matters because our veterans and the chance to express our gratitude for our vets is what brings them all together.
Totally. Wow.
So I tell the crowd, shh. I want them to listen for the bagpipes. So you've been at Fresno Airport, that long corridor from
Oh, yeah.
TSA.
Yes.
So we hear the bagpipes approaching. The veterans now, they know something's coming. But the next thing they see 30 or 40 uniformed sailors from NAS Lemoore, men and women serving our country right now, standing at attention, saluting them as they come through. So that gets to them.
Totally.
Then they come through the doors, the bagpipers, the color guard, and I get to say, welcome home, veterans. And that crowd, I'm getting goosebumps right now just telling you.
Sure.
The crowd erupts.
Yeah.
And the band starts playing, and the band doesn't stop playing the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marine songs until the last veteran has made it all the way through. And that procession, we've got signs here, welcome home, Johnny.
Oh, I bet,
We've
yeah.
got pictures of what these guys look like when they were in the
So
service.
Sweet. Wow.
Everybody's wearing red, white, and blue. They're
Yeah.
waving flags.
Yeah.
And that human tunnel goes from there all the way past the coffee shop, around the corner, all the way to baggage claim, where a lot of times the last thing they'll see is a bunch of teenagers in uniforms with our local ROTC groups like Duncan Polytechnical or Clovis East who are there. So the veterans, I mean, there's no way to really capture what that feels like for them unless you see the look on their face.
I bet.
And you could see the most hardened Marine, you know, with
Yeah.
3 Purple Hearts and a silver star. And you might see that little tear coming down his cheek.
Yeah, I
So
bet.
30 times, goosebumps every
Yeah, I
time
bet.
for people who haven't been there yet.
And it's about 70 per flight, you said?
70 veterans per flight.
Wow.
And so the hard thing to think about, of those 2,000 vets that have gone, so many of them are no longer with us.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse for us than having a veteran who's signed up to go, who passes before we're able to take them. So that's why it's important that we raise that money to keep them going. We're trying to do at least 3 per year, but that's not cheap. I mean, we're looking at almost $250,000 per flight that we have to raise.
I believe it.
So I just, again, thank you for being
Amazing.
patient. I want to thank anybody who's donated. There's so many. It's not a bunch of big donations. There's a lot of small individual donations. I'd love to tell you about some of the unique ways our community has fundraised, things we would never think of.
Yeah,
And
right.
there might be some of your listeners who have ideas we haven't thought of yet. Because
Right.
every time we do a flight, someone will say, hey, what if we do this?
Right.
And when we all work together, it just gets better and better and
It's
better.
better and better. So you do 3 a year. That's a lot-ish. And you said you've done up to 4 sometimes.
We did do 4. The most heartbreaking period for us was COVID, because
I
it wasn't safe to
bet.
fly. We got shut down. Any honor flight around the country, we had a national moratorium.
Wow.
And unfortunately, we had 25 veterans who had been scheduled to go who passed away during that time.
Wow.
But we found a unique way to honor them by taking some flags to all the memorials with a picture of that veteran and then presenting that in a shadow box to the family when we got back home.
Love
We'll
that.
still do that if that situation occurs again. But because of that, we were kind of backlogged. And so we tried to catch up. We did 4 flights. Right now, to be best stewards of the resources, and it's a little more expensive at certain times. The weather's a little
sure.
riskier at some times.
Yeah.
But right now, we're on a rhythm where 1 flight in the spring, 2 in the fall.
Great.
And as long as people keep donating, we're committed to keep getting our veterans there.
Yeah, amazing. So it's a really dynamic organization because it sounds like there's a lot of ways that people can support, right? Obviously, donations, any amount is welcome and obviously very much appreciated. Guardians, you mentioned,
Yeah.
right?
We couldn't do it without Guardians.
Yeah. One
And it
you
changes their lives.
I bet. So, okay. So if I'm a guardian, do some of these guardians like know the veteran that they're being sort of paired with? Is there like a relationship there pretty much every time? Or are they just like general volunteers or a combination of both?
Great question. So I would say about 2/3 of our Guardians are a family member.
I would think so, right?
It
Like a
doesn't
family
mean
or
they're
a friend.
close.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean the Guardians ever heard
interesting.
about the veterans' experience as a military.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Interesting.
I've had fathers come and say, hey, honor flight restored my relationship with my daughter.
Wow. That's
know?
everything.
Or I never knew this, but I had a veteran recently. His dad's passed away, but his Rotary Club in Firebaugh was donating to our group. And he told me the story that when they were in Washington, the night after that really long day, his dad told him 5 stories about World War II and things he went through. And he said, that's the only time in my entire life my dad ever said anything about World War II.
Wow.
That one night in Washington. So it changes
Wow.
the Guardians' lives. But
Sure.
so 2/3 of them are family. The other are people from the community who say, I'd really like to do this.
Yeah.
They have different reasons. And we have some who go over and over and over. I'm thinking of a guy, Brian Weldon and Dave Turner, 2 of our all-star Guardians. They keep coming back over and over.
That's so
and
great.
then now they do have a relationship with that veteran. They're meeting up for coffee.
Sure, I would think so. I mean, that's
Yeah.
such an emotional, personal experience. I mean, how could you not?
And so often it's easy for our older veterans to be forgotten, to be left behind, to be isolated. Maybe their wife died. Maybe they don't have any family. Maybe their family's on the other side of the country. All of a sudden, now they've got a new network. They have 70 new best friends they went on the flight with, and then they've got a guardian who's going to follow up with them. So there's so
Yeah.
many unintended consequences that I think have really been a blessing and a plus for our
So
community.
I would think that was going to be one of my questions. So you're on this flight. So I think of it similar to any sort of travel experience when you go with a group. You become close with these people. You're traveling with these people. There's a level of just different connection when you travel with someone, right? So do we have do they treat it like almost like a class of whatever year? Like do they keep in touch? I imagine they form really strong bonds. Like what is that like?
They do, and that's, I think one of the areas where we could grow as an organization. Again, we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
And over time, our roster of volunteers changes a little bit. People move on or they have different things.
I'm sure.
We could do a better job of creating reunion opportunities for the veterans, but they do it for themselves.
I bet.
We had a group, this is a cool story. We had a group of Vietnam veterans who decided in a class at the Vet Center, which is one of our great resources in town for veterans. It's through the VA where they can get counseling for PTSD.
Amazing.
And this was a group of 16 veterans, I believe, who were all in that class together. Said, we're going to go on the honor flight together.
Aww.
So they did, and now they come to every flight, and they stand in the same spot. They wear their honor flight jackets, and they wait in the crowd to cheer on the next group because they know what it meant to them.
Wow.
There are a lot of people who have just become part of that honor flight family.
Community, yeah.
And again, we welcome more ideas for how to do it better.
So you said jackets. Do they get a jacket?
Oh, they get some swag.
I bet.
So they get a hat.
Okay, love it.
One of the favorite phone calls I got was from a veteran. I lost my honor flight hat. I was like, oh, when did you go? 2013. This guy's 100 years old, but he wanted another honor flight hat so he could represent and spread the news.
I love it.
They get a hat, they get a T-shirt, they get a jacket, and they get a bag. So they all have the same size duffel bag. That way we can control it. It's easier to load the plane.
Okay.
We tell them to mark it. Some of them embroider it. They tie a funny bow on it. Their wives will do something.
Okay, yeah.
So they get all that, and they get a little lanyard that's got their name and their bus assignment and their bus color. And that's another part of the culture of honor flight is we have a blue bus, a red bus, and a gold bus. And depending on your personality, you may enjoy one bus more than the other. So the gold bus has gotten a reputation as being kind of the, for lack of a better word, the party bus. Some of our volunteers just really want to put smiles on the veterans' faces.
Yeah.
They'll pick certain music. They'll do some little routines. So they probably have something else cooked up their sleeve for Trip 31 in April.
Yeah, I love it. And what about red and blue?
Well, I think those are the more traditional buses. But each flight has its own personality.
I bet.
Every vet has his own personality.
Okay, so the next flight departs on April 28th, right? Returns on the 30th. Mm-hmm. Anybody in the community is welcome to come to the homecoming, correct?
We want you there.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference for these veterans when they see you. Mm-hmm. The most heartbreaking thing for me on those, sometimes the flight has been delayed and we've had some young families who are like, I can't keep my kid up this late. We gotta go.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to be on time on April 30th.
Do you know the time yet?
So we tell everyone to get there around 5 o'clock.
Okay.
You're going to be early.
Yeah.
The flight's going to land just before 6, Lord willing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to keep you entertained. We've got a band.
Sure.
We've got, hearing veteran stories who've already gone on the flight or people coming out to support us. Mm-hmm. I hesitate to thank all the people who supported us because I'm going to leave someone out, but there's some that keep coming up over and over, like Food for Less Central Valley. They've done a golf tournament with their vendors every year for the last 7 years, giving us over $200,000, and they don't want any attention for it. That's why I'm mentioning your name. But, they'll come and give us a check. We had prisoners at a prison in Kalinga said, we want to raise money. We know that we have veterans in prison. If we weren't here, we'd be going on that flight. Mm-hmm. They raised money so their fellow veterans could go.
Wow.
School kids. We had a group in Porterville. This young lady's grandfather was a Pearl Harbor survivor, her great-granddad. She said, let's make blankets for all the vets. So they made these patriotic blankets for all the vets that were going to go on the flight. Little did they know that's when COVID hit. But we had an event to distribute those blankets so those vets, while they're waiting 2 years for their flight, have this blanket to hold on to because of these teenage girls who gave up their lunch hour to sew blankets. I can go on and on.
I know.
So many stories. My hometown of Las Banas has been big in it too.
Have they?
High school kids.
And your range of the valley is extensive. What'd you say again? It was how north? Stockton?
Stockton is our cutoff in the north.
Yeah.
To Porterville.
That's what I thought.
Now, in a unique situation, sometimes we'll get, hey, there's a World War II veteran who's in Sacramento, or a little outside of our area.
Sure, yeah.
We can find a way to take them. Mm-hmm. But for all intents and purposes, Stockton in the north, Porterville in the south.
Wow.
And so many special communities within that area that have, in their own way, made this possible and really shown a lot of leadership, I think, too. Sometimes one community will see another one, hey, they did this. Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
So even places like Squaw Valley, they've got a rodeo there, and they raise money for us every year.
Wow.
So many ways that people can support. And I love seeing, I don't think anything fires me up more than seeing when these 80, 90, 100-year-old veterans form connection with the teenagers.
I know, right?
It could be the high school cheerleaders waiting for them here and shaking the pom-poms and smiling.
Yeah.
Or student journalists who've gone and told some of their stories. It changes their whole view of the future and their view of history. So if you can tell, I'm a little fired up and passionate about this.
I just love it so much. So you document the trip. You mentioned photographers, and I've seen, obviously, online. Like, for those that want to know more, like, follow along the journey, where can they go to do that? Is it social media? Is it your website? Where should they look for that?
The website's the best place to start.
Okay.
We are on Facebook and Instagram, and during a flight, you're going to get a lot of content. So a lot of the families of the vets.
Yeah.
We could do a better job of outside the flights having more content to keep people's, attention. But during the flights, they're going to be bombarded with every stop we make, and they're
great.
Some of these wives or kids, you're just waiting. Is he there? Hey, there he is. But also, here's another angle. This is another group of people who I really think, again, an unintended consequence that it's affected and changed, our local media.
Yeah.
You think over 11 years of doing this, how many TV reporters, print reporters, radio reporters, bloggers have gone on this trip? They've seen things that blow their mind, and they're in the storytelling business. So all of a sudden, they're hearing these stories. They're like, this is nuts. This is unbelievable. This is way better than anything else I've ever covered.
Yes.
And inside the media business, a lot of these reporters, if they're looking for another job, they'll put together a resume reel that they're sending all these other stations.
Right.
We've had a lot of people leave Fresno for bigger cities and bigger jobs using their coverage of Honor Flight because that was the best story they ever told.
Well, I mean, come on. Of course it was. Yeah.
But more importantly than getting them jobs, it opens their eyes to a world that can often be outside our view. And when they're telling those stories, and then they're approaching every story they cover in the future with that perspective and that gratitude for our veterans' service, that's another way that I think it's just really made a difference.
Well, Ann, I mean, I think you've done that for me, even just a small piece of that. So I can't imagine actually physically being there and experiencing it with them. That's amazing. So how can those that are veterans that may not, are becoming familiar with your organization and haven't heard of it before, which, I mean, it's crazy to even think. I'm sure it's a lot of them already are very familiar. How can they sort of sign up to be put in the queue for a flight?
Thank you for asking the most important question. and believe it or not, we still run into veterans who've never heard of it. I'll see a guy in the store wearing a veteran's hat, and I'll ask him, "What's that?" I think you'd be surprised. Like if we're in that, overloaded with content world, we forget that some people aren't consuming as much of it. It might be good for their health to have the approach they have.
100%. I know, right?
Except for this podcast. Very good for you.
Good save. No.
So cvhonorflight.org.
Yes.
CV like Central Valley, honorflight.org. Right there, you'll see right on the front page, veteran application. You click on that. Now, the other question we get is who's eligible. Some people think, well, I have to have gone overseas or I had to have been in combat. No.
Okay.
You just have to have served in any branch of the military at any point before the end of the Vietnam War in 1975.
Okay.
So you could have served during the Vietnam War, in Korea, World War II, or the years in between. Because newsflash, we probably came closer to the end of the world during the Cold War than any of those hot wars. And those veteran service is just as valuable, and we want to thank them. So any veteran that served before the end of the Vietnam War is eligible for the flight.
Okay.
It's absolutely free. They can fill out the application online. If you've got a veteran that struggles with computers and digital, do it for them. It's going to save our volunteers a lot of time to have a digital application versus paper, and then you don't have the risk of something being translated.
Right.
It's all first come, first serve. So we have some vets on the list now. They've probably been waiting about 2 years since they signed up.
I was going to say, how long?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, COVID made that worse,
Bet,
But I want to give a shout out, if I can, to the Fresno City Council.
Yeah.
Tyler Maxwell is the representative for the airport. And he proposed to his fellow councilmen that, hey, we have this funding from the federal government called ARPA that is to go to nonprofits who are affected by COVID. And I already told you, we had 25 veterans die before they could go.
Yeah, wow.
And then every other veteran who had signed up was delayed 2.5 years. So they said, we've got this federal money, it's going to be gone unless we find some worthy organizations. And so we received, that's the only grant we've ever gotten like this, $100,000 from the federal government through the city of Fresno to benefit Valley veterans. So we do really appreciate that. And
That's amazing.
That's right up there with the bake sales and the car washes and the drive-through dinners and
Yeah.
everything else that supports our cause. So the veterans can sign up there.
Okay.
The guardians can sign up there. We have an age limit on the guardians. So you can find, there's an FAQ on there that lists,
Perfect.
probably answers every question you have. But you said something that I'm glad you said, photos. We have photos from every flight. Our photographers are unbelievable.
Amazing.
And all 30 flights have a whole, cache of photographs on there that you can browse through. So maybe you had a vet go
Good.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
You can go back and find that photo.
Amazing.
And if you've got some ideas of how to make it better, tell us. And there is a donate button on there too.
Love it.
And that's what makes us go.
Yeah. I love the welcomeness to being creative and fundraising too. And just being open and open-minded to all the creative ways that people can contribute. That's really great.
To me, that's one of the things I love about our group the most.
Yeah.
Because there's so many great causes in our community. There's so many worthy places for you to give your dollars. But I think with Honor Flight, we never hit anybody over the head. We've never had some big organized fundraising campaign.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is this community gets passionate. This group of people gets passionate. And they do it for us. And it means so much more. And then it gives them a connection and an investment in the organization. So,
I bet.
we want your time, we want your talent, and your treasure. Maybe you can give all three, maybe just one of them. But we wouldn't have been able to create this experience for over 2,000 veterans without all of that from all our
of that.
volunteers.
And that's kind
They're
of the
unsung heroes.
extended benefit of it, right? So as a special person in our special place, I'm so happy to have you here, Paul. As a storyteller too, like what are you hoping for in somebody experiencing the Central Valley Honor Flight? Like what do you hope they get out of it?
Well, and thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to
Yeah.
share about something that, to me, is the best representation of our community. It's everything that makes our community special. It's people saying, hey, these men and women paid the price for the freedom that I have, and by giving back, we're not only blessing them, we're opening everybody else's eyes. We're making our community a better place to live. What I hope that a veteran gets more than anything, now this is simple, and it may seem basic and mundane. I want them to hear thank you. Because they may hear it, but if you look them in the eye and you give them a firm handshake and they know you mean it, it means something to them. You never know how much it means. It may mean more to this veteran than that veteran. But we want them to hear thank you. We want them to know that they're not forgotten. And they are so humble. I mean, this is characteristic, especially of the World War II generation, and I've seen in these other generations of vets as well. Every one of them will tell you, I'm not a hero. The real heroes didn't come home. They're the ones we're honoring at these memorials. And then they're quick to downplay what they did. Well, someone else did more than I did. This person did that.
Yeah.
You want to say, hold on a second. No. You're special. A friend of mine who works with an honor flight out of Colorado came up with a T-shirt quote. And it says, we have an obligation to the veterans who didn't come home to honor the ones who did.
Yeah, wow.
So you think about that for a second.
Wow.
And that, if you share that concept with a veteran, all of a sudden they don't feel like they're looking for attention. None of them are. They're not looking for you to say, hey, you're the hero. But it means something for them to know that what I did matters, that somebody recognizes that. And there's also a little hope for the future because they see that people are understanding more and more what they did and why and what it means to us today.
Right. Gosh. Yeah. And as a reminder, they experience this at zero cost. That is tremendously impressive. I mean, that is really awesome. And obviously you can't do it without donations, without support, and with kind of having the community sort of wrap their arms around the organization and these vets, right? I mean, that's everything.
And that's what's made it go.
Yeah.
It's our community. It's the heart of our community. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that puts people's mind at ease is the fact that we're all volunteers.
Yeah,
right?
wow.
No one's getting paid. I'll tell you, we are rewarded. We're richly rewarded. Our lives are so much more fulfilling because of how Honor Flight has added to all of our experiences. But every penny is going to make sure as many vets as deserve this experience get that experience. So we never planned to still be doing it 11 years later. I don't know how far into the future it's going to go, but I know there's 450 vets on the waiting list now and probably quite a few more who haven't signed up yet.
Yeah.
So as long as this community wants to keep it going, we're going to see it continue.
Amazing. So for those interested in getting involved, cvhonorflight.com, correct?
.org.
.org.
Uh-huh.
cvhonorflight.org. And you're active on social media. Instagram, Facebook, right?
Instagram, Facebook are the two more popular ones.
Okay.
I don't know if we're ready to do TikTok or anything like that yet. There are some World War II vet TikTok stars out there.
Really?
And if you have some ideas with your expertise in the space, we'd love it. Maybe we can get you on a flight so you can experience firsthand.
That's amazing. I love that. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being here and sharing your story and all things Central Valley Honor Flight, and look forward to coming on April 30th.
Well, I hope everybody listening is there on April 30th.
Yes.
And I almost forgot, you were kind enough to get me my favorite Dutch Bros drink here, Kokomo. Yes. Dutch Bros one year on Veterans Day said, hey, we'll donate $1 from every cup of coffee to Central Valley Honor Flight. I think that was $10,000 that year. So
wow.
Dutch Bros
yes.
as well.
Dutch Bros, they're so generous. That's great. And I love your Kokomo. So it's coffee, chocolate, and coconut, right?
Yeah, just it's one of those health food drinks.
Yeah, you're being healthy. Well, coffee, cheers. Thank you for being here.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Feel free to rate and review this episode here and connect with us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, or any guest suggestions. Thanks.